Good morning. I am so delighted today that we're going to be joined by a very enterprising and exciting journalist and author, Jen Stout, who grew up in Shetland and has been on an incredible journey that all started when she was at school. And so, without more ado, I want to start our conversation by introducing you to Jen Stout, who I was introduced to by the Ukrainian Institute in New York when she came over here to do a book signing tour of her book. But let's go back and rewind. And Jen, take us back to your childhood and growing up in Shetland and your wonderful teacher.
Oh, with pleasure. Thank you. Um, I grew up largely on Fair Isle, which is the smallest inhabited island of Scotland. It's 25 miles between Shetland and Orkney. The population is roughly around 50 or 60. It was a little bit higher when I was younger. So we were crofters, which is, I'm sure you all know, being aficionados of all things Scotland. But for those who don't, it's a bit like being a farmer, but you don't own any land and you're quite poor. That's what crofting largely means. And we had some sheep and o- occasionally one or two cows. And I was very happy there. I loved it. I went to high school in Shetland and I did not love that, Camilla, at all. But I did, I did attend whenever I could, when I started studying Russian. And that's because of, as you said, this teacher that I had, Marion Ockenden, who was a Shetlander herself, but she spoke several languages and one of them was Russian. And I just found that I knew the language already almost. I soaked it up like a sponge. I enjoyed the grammar. I enjoyed the sound of it. And I got very interested in Eastern Europe generally, in the politics and the culture and poetry as well. And, I started reading a lot of the Russian journalist Anna Politkovskaya. She was a huge inspiration with her war reporting and her investigative work. So this set me on a path, I suppose, and I decided that I would go to school a bit more often. I would try to do my exams and maybe go to university. But it was she'd actually Maria Knockenden took us to St. Petersburg when I was 15. Can you imagine? I'd never really gone abroad, and there I was, descending over St. Petersburg in the plane with my sweaty little passport gripped in my hand, looking at this vast city and thinking, oh, this is, this is new. And I just
But
loved
what
it.
a
I
what a
really did.
wonderful experience to see St. Petersburg at that moment.
It was extraordinary. It was early spring and the rivers were still frozen as they are currently, of course. So yeah, it was a long and windy path to be honest, because I went to Edinburgh University to study linguistics and Russian language. And I was quite good at that. Not linguistics, got a bit bored, but I was good at Russian. And the good thing about Scottish education, as I'm sure you know, is that it's very broad. So we have 4-year undergraduate degrees instead of three, and that means that you can really, particularly in your first 2 years, you can swap around a lot of your courses. You can see what interests you. The idea being that we should educate our kids in a broad way, to be citizens. I think it's a lovely idea rather than this more vocational kind of 3-year stick on one path thing. And I loved that. I would hang around the library and read everything. I was quite earnest and geeky. And when it came to go to Russia for the year abroad, I sadly couldn't afford the exorbitant fee which you had to pay. So I switched my degree to sociology, which is a great degree for a journalist, but I still do regret not having that chance to go and really get fluent in Russian, particularly because it was probably the last time to go there and really try to be a journalist or experience some freedom in Russia, because by the time I did get there, which was many years later, having trained and worked as a journalist at the BBC and done all sorts, I finally got to Russia on a fellowship, and it was far too late for any of that hopeful, optimistic, starry-eyed stuff for being a journalist there. It
So,
was
what
really
time frame are we talking about? Are we at 2019?
when I got to Moscow on this fellowship, it was November 2021. So
Okay.
it had been postponed with COVID for quite a long time. I'd gone up to work for the BBC in Shetland, actually, on the radio. And off I went in November. Spent a very strange few months largely in Moscow. And then came the 24th of February. I was going to leave anyway. I mean, it was becoming suffocating. I had a lot of friends in Ukraine. I'd been there previously. And, you felt slightly surrounded by propaganda and war hype. Um, but we didn't think there was going to be the kind of full invasion of Ukraine because, I mean, no one did at the time, apart from the intelligence services who were trying to warn everybody. We didn't listen. I just didn't think they were that stupid as to try and take the entire country, but lo and behold, they were. So it was the 24th of February, 22. I was in Siberia, sort of deepest, darkest Siberia as well. And I just arrived with my colleagues on this program trip and then got off the plane. It was an overnight plane, so we got off and sort of looked at our phones, and this was the invasion starting. And it took a few days, but we left very quickly. And I ended up in Vienna, where I saw some Ukrainian
Right.
friends and gathered my things. And then I thought, right, well, I'm not going to go home, am I? So, and by this point, I was freelance, I'd left my job. So I went to Romania, the border with Romania and Ukraine, for a few weeks. This was March 22. And I worked there speaking Russian to people who'd fled across the border to refugees. And then in April, mid-April 22, I went to Odessa and then on to Kharkiv, then all over Ukraine for the last few years reporting.
And that has inspired you to write a book, which is now up for has been getting a lot of acclaim, but it's also up for quite a prestigious award in these next few weeks, isn't it?
Yes, in April, it's on the shortlist for the Sherborne Prize for Travel Writing. It's the inaugural one, but it was published in May 24 in Edinburgh by an Edinburgh publisher called Berlin Polygon, and it's also distributed in the US with Casemate. But yeah, it's won a few prizes. I've been really overwhelmed by the response. I've done about 60 book talks in the last year and a half, so I'm quite tired, but it's been really great.
And
Especially in Scotland, I think people have been noticeably like very, very engaged, very supportive of Ukraine, and everybody wants to know what they can do to help.
well, also you've gone behind the curtain. You give this view from inside that isn't always seen.
I hope so. Yeah. I mean, the book does start in Russia, for the first initial bit, and then a bit in Romania. But what I wanted to show people about Ukraine was, the stuff that you can't fit into to reporting because of space and time, which is sort of everyday life and food and music and my friends and their incredible lives and their incredible bravery and their humor. It's very easy to stereotype, with very negative imagery, a country at war. And of course, people have images in their head of a kind of war-torn, terrible grey place, and that's not propaganda. That's true. It is war-torn, and there are terrible things happening today. But we shouldn't forget that this is a very large and very diverse country with really different landscapes, different. The cities are so varied. The architecture in Ukraine is just, I mean, for lots of historical reasons, absolutely incredible. I always loved Kharkiv the most, but I have a great soft spot for Odessa and Kramatorsk and Kiev. These are all really different places. So, yes, I ended up writing, I did a lot of breaking news, but I also started to do more long form, and that's what I really enjoy. It's kind of magazine pieces, long reported features, where you get to describe some of what's around you. And particularly with the book, I just really wanted to make people feel like they were there with me, you know?
Yes, which they do. And you
Good.
have just come back from another month or so over there and have been reporting on the very harshness of winter.
Yeah, I wasn't there that long this time, but I've just got back and I was in Kiev and then just a couple of days in Lviv. I mean, partly I go to see my friends, As as a freelancer, I'm not sort of under huge pressure to, I don't want to file the same story as everybody else. And I think that does happen sometimes, just with small variations. So I want to add a bit of context. And so I've written a piece for a diary piece for the London Review of Books that'll come out soon. And I did some radio reporting. But really, I was also there to see my friends. We had a concert of Serhii Jadan and other musicians and poets in a concert hall in Kiev. And yes, it was -10 outside and barely more than that inside, but there was 300 people in a concert hall, wrapped up in coats. I saw an exhibition opening to mark Holocaust Remembrance Day of the amazing painter Matvei Weisberg. These things happened. This is Kiev too, and this is what I mean is the kind of the breadth of life that is there, and I really always want to try and convey that. Yeah,
But
but it
that
was it
also
was an
keeps
extremely cold
everybody,
trip.
that also helps everybody in these dark moments.
Yeah, I think culture is a really important part of resistance. It always has been. And also, I mean, a lot is happening in Ukraine in recent years where people are collectively unpicking all those centuries of Russian colonialism and saying, well, why is it that if, my great grandparents or maybe even my grandparents spoke Ukrainian, my parents only spoke Russian, and we never really talked about it. And maybe now I'm going to speak only Ukrainian. People are going through these transitions, these shifts, and it's at once deeply personal and deeply collective. And that means that culture is really it's like first and foremost, it's really, really important in this whole fight. I mean, it's an existential fight that they have to pursue.
Well, I hope that you're going to stay in touch with us and let us know more about what is happening. I'm so, and next time you come over, we would love to have you do a book signing and a talk and have a chance for our members to ask questions and meet you. And stay safe. And we are so proud of you. And I
Thank you.
can't believe that you grew up on an island of 27 people and
50,
learned
60.
Russian.
Yeah.
60 people. Okay. I shortchanged it. 60 people, and this has led you on this journey. Absolutely incredible.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. We get far and wide Shetlanders all over the world.
I know. I know. All right. The very best wishes to you from an
Thank you.
equally rather chilly New York. We're at about 8 degrees today, and we think that's quite warm after what we've been through the last
Yes.
week or so. But take care. My very best wishes to you. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Thank you.